Solo is the best Belarusian doping. The time has come for large expenses. A well-known psychological law, the more out of poverty a person came out, the more show-offs he needs when he will reach for money or power. In the case of Lukashenka, everything is much scarier. He came out, not even out of poverty, but however, he himself once confessed. Where from? I came out of the same shit I saw last week. A week. I went through it all, barefoot, naked, and dressed. Any psychiatrist knows that children's complexes and psychological patients want to compensate for injuries. But what if the power is not limited anyway? There are already 17 residences, both Mercedes and Tesla are in the garage. Maybach, and at the airport there are already 2 personal Boeing with gold toilets and a helicopter for $12 million. As for the watches you often write about, I'm not in vain. I told you about it, so don't worry. The watch, like the car, was given to me for my birthday. There is perhaps only one thing missing, a confession. And not so much within the framework of the inevitable criminal business, how much international as such. All presidents of decent countries consider a collective farmer, and politely shy away. And for a prestigious event in Europe at first it's just, they did not call, and then it became scary to drive myself, so that, don't embarrass yourself. The only way out is to arrange a large-scale event, at home and for yourself, because the second European, the games conceived by Lukashenko for the most part are not interesting. No one but himself. Are you listening to me or are you picking at your tablet? In the sports world, the Hunger Games, as aptly dubbed, their Belarusian people have a status rather purely party. Such an under-Olympic Games, where you can all meet together, compete well, eat for free and have fun, spend time, and that's why some athletes will even come to it, but European fans, it turns out they are about the main thing. The Galaxy sporting event is not even suspected. About international sports games for gays and lesbians, taking place on the same days in Madrid, they know, but about the Lukashenkovskis, no, I haven't heard anything about these games. European Games, no idea what it is.
No, I have not heard of anything about. I don't know what you are talking about.
I didn't hear anything about this game.
Of course, our mustachioed Grigorievich tried to fix the situation.
Alyaksandr Lukashenka. Европейские игры? Без понятия, что это такое.
Бог его знает, я даже не скажу.
А там юношеские, не для взрослых.
Нет, не слышал.
Конечно, УГ, усатый Григорьевич, пытался исправить ситуацию.
And even paid for our account with a few expensive videos on the European Euronews TV channel, that's just. Even without a visa, look at the dull exotic in the form of. Only about people have agreed to the DDR in the center of Europe so far. And Lukashenko expected at least 90,000. It will certainly become the most important socio-political an event in the history of sovereign Belarus. The world's attention will be focused on us these days. Communities. Just the facts in February on the official website of the Hungary. It was said at the games that there would be as many as seats in the stands. Places with the possibility to increase their number too, but in the end, I had to reduce it. Now they modestly boast only 100,000 tickets sold. Yes, and as sold, mostly distributed or forcibly, or even for free. They were bullied by these games, absolutely nothing. In the last month, our Telegram channel has been literally bombarded with plums from different regions of Belarus about how the leadership of state organizations first forced employees to buy tickets. And then, when there were no fools, they connected to the case. Trade unions, Grodno postmen, Vitebsk teachers, Minsk railway workers. All tickets for adult badminton, karate or archery. Onions were given out for free, also bringing from the regions to Minsk at the expense of the company. And lately, except for a free trip to the competition, they also began to distribute tickets to the Minsk water park only. Go and have a look at these unfortunate competitions.
Несчастные соревнования.
An unpleasant situation turned out with the sponsors of the competition. Global brands somehow did not catch fire with the desire to advertise. Among the hard workers, students forcibly driven to the stands. Both school children and politely refused. Already poor Belarusian enterprises had to be milked. And of course the state budget. According to the first calculations, which were announced by Lukashenko himself, the Hunger Games were supposed to cost the treasury only 50. We will even be in the black for millions of dollars, we will. In the black from the Olympics. We will need to spend somewhere under 50 million for. These years are tears for the country. Then we decided to save money and the estimate immediately grew to 107 million. To save a year of thrift, you know, it's true. The last figure that was named is $115 million. Then they stopped bragging about saving altogether in order to, not to annoy the population, but the population should be distracted. And entertain, including forcibly. We should be happy, do not strain. But all this has already happened once, guess who? The main idol of Lukashenko, and in this he wants to stand out. At least among the future neighbors in the ward. Everyone wants to be Napoleons and I'm Hitler. Hitler formed a powerful Germany thanks to a strong presidential power. No matter how you look at it, only the patient's schizophrenia is powerful here. However, he really tries to imitate and copy. After all, Adolf Hitler also had his own Hungary Games, for example, the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Who had the right to cancel my decisions? However, what kind of furor such are the Olympiads for our collective farm? Ned Hitler was entrusted with only modest underplays of the continental scale. The previous ones have already been arranged by the way in Azerbaijan. It is also very far from the principles of democracy of the country. But the poor Netherlands refused to host the games. They say it's expensive. But all the same, the Lukashenko propagandists are itchy. It is difficult to call this event an Olympiad. School children who are currently on vacation, they will actively participate in all events, which will be held at the second Olympic Games. Are not to name or still to name, but they are already themselves confused. Our Olympics, according to propaganda. I would like them to show the report of the Belteledycom company in general, where we call these competitions the Olympiad. Maybe it was once, but it's out of the question. Apparently the chairman of the Belteledycom company does not think so. And concurrently the husband of the press secretary of Lukashenko, Ivan Eisman, the site of his own organization. After all, our Olympiad is in the most prominent place there, neither. Give or take. And Ivan Mikhailovich Eisman was very concerned about the following. European Games, which can host Polish. Krakow, the only city that still wants to. Propagandists are already wondering if we will also banter. And above them, I'm stocking up on popcorn because I'm the only one. The application for the next games is Poland's application. And it is quite possible that these games will take place in Poland. And of course I'm waiting for, in general, this whole set about Hungary. Games about money spent, about not interesting to anyone. Competitions. You're lying again, Ivan Mikhailovich. Firstly, the application is not from Poland but only from Lesser Poland Voivodeship of Poland, speaking in Belarusian terminology, then approximately from Krakow areas. This is the first. Secondly, in Poland they can count money, and even from the residents of Krakow refused to hold the Winter Olympics by holding a local referendum on this issue. Yes, imagine in Poland such issues are solved by himself. The people by voting, thanks to which, by the way, for all the time while the mustachioed Tsar rules in Belarus, in Poland, 5 presidents have already been replaced. The average salary has become, it is 4 times more than the Belarusian one, and the prices remained at the same level or even decreased. Finally, if the inhabitants of the Lesser Poland Voivodeship decide to conduct at the third European Games, then they will be held. They will be not so much at the expense of the budget, but at the expense of international sponsor companies that are scared away from Belarus dictatorship, and come to Krakow and the surrounding area fans. They will be able to do not that without visas, even without passports, the European Union, but, and forcibly drive state employees to the stands, and students forcibly enroll people as volunteers and arrange. From an ordinary event, a propaganda show is for sure. No one will, in Europe, such idiocy would even come to mind. To some official, he would have done it the next day. He's unemployed. And if a Belarusian official were in Poland, he would even have strawberries. The collection was not entrusted for the simple reason that a typical Belarusian official, it's not about everyone, it's a person. Not only without conscience and self-respect, but also without brains. They even carried out preparations for the Lukashenko Hunger Games, so that not only the whole country laughed at them but, and the whole world. They first installed reinforced concrete blocks around the fan zone. And then, after the shout, Lukashenko was removed. We are starting to create either concentration camps or some kind of ghettos in Belarus. Underground passages in Minsk were first papered with cheap, a marble-like film, and then it was torn off. But a little later they changed their mind and stuck it back on those same places. This is the best job in the world, the best job in the world, the best work in the world. They even put the symbols of the Hunger Games on condoms, apparently in order for such idiots not to multiply. And for some reason they bought as much for the directorate of the European Games. 3 portraits of Lukashenko worth under 500 rubles, each, and 1 laptop for $1. By the way, in total, the organizers of the event spent on various purchases. We have already spent more than $100 million. Facilities. The image of the country is very important, and if we decide to be independent sovereign, we must understand that it is not cheap. It costs. And add to that the exhausting rehearsals of everything you can. From meeting the lighter with the fire of the Hunger Games in everyone. The district center, before lunch in the dining room. Constant traffic jams and scandals with volunteers. And also the apogee of idiocy, fireworks in broad daylight. In Gomel, which no one saw in the light of the sun. But the heat began when the sacred fire of the hungry. The games got to Minsk and went out. And the excited chairman of the Minsk City Executive Committee, Anatoly Sivak, even named the most expensive in the history of mankind. A gaslighter is not the flame of the world, as on a piece of paper in his hands, and the flame of fire. Minsk for the first time meets the main symbol of the Second European Games, the flame of fire. And you could call it even simpler, stupidity of stupidity. Or the idiocy of Morinism, but how else can you describe the idea to block the main avenues of the capital at the height of the working day? As can be seen from the reviews of outraged drivers, the atmosphere of sports. The holiday, let's face it, is still. But while hundreds of thousands of people instead of to work, they are engaged in nonsense, playing the whole country. A poor performance for the sake of the vanity of one viewer in this country. There are a lot of places where you can put your strength and direct money. For example, for 3 years they have been looking for funds to repair an infectious departments of the Slonim Central District Hospital, in which you can make horror movies. It takes only $5,400,000 to restore it. For the money spent on the Hunger Games, this hospital, it could be repaired 27 times. And in Svetlogorsk, the chief doctor of the local Cree even started to collect money from ordinary people because the state, there is no hope. In the Minsk Regional Hospital in Borovliny, they are loaded by 5 patients in a battered ambulance, and they are being taken to Dzerzhinsk, from where they were previously brought to Borovliny, to make a diagnosis, because in Dzerzhinskaya, the district hospital still does not have a tomograph, which there are even in small rural hospitals of all civilized countries. And there would be something to lead along, because there are not all roads either renovated, but they have trampolines, like on this highway between Minsk and Sologorsk. However, they already exist between Pinsk and Gomel too. No wonder, because trampolines are a sport, and sport is health. If you have doubts about your health, wear skates. Take a stick or skis, we'll try it with you tomorrow. Here they say health is the main thing, the uneducated. A healthy person is a healthy fool, I'm rude. Say. Just a healthy fool. And a healthy fool is dangerous to society. And specifically this healthy fool is dangerous to society. First of all, by having access to the distribution budget funds. I turn what I want. And instead of directing money to where it really is, we need them, he buys what he wants, and for our. The bill is with you. It all started with the construction of the National Library. Money for which they started withdrawing back in 2002. Even from the accounts of subscribers of mobile operators. Don't go where you don't need to. Then Lukashenko managed to increase the number of eyes. There are as many as 38 palaces across the country. Now the leadership of the district centers is crying with burning tears. Because they eat millions of dollars worth of electricity. And there is no profit, only losses. This is not charity, this is not a thoughtless investment. Funds, we have built ice palaces, we are not a penny on. We don't spend them on maintenance today, they're themselves. They pay off. When was this? Never. To say that this is 100% payback, well, you know that it's basically unrealistic. But since there is no result, no courage to admit mediocrity, there is really no idea that the Belarusian team does not get to the Olympic Games hockey team. It's a disgrace. We only have to increase the degree of absurdity. It turns out we need even more ice palaces. Yes, there are not enough skating rinks. When they say that we have a lot of skating rinks, it's funny to me. 30 skating rinks is not 350 as in Sweden. In our country there should be at least 100 skating rinks here. 100 ice rinks. It would seem that only a year ago an expensive one opened. Presidential special clinic in Zdanovici with a separate, a 2-room ward for Lukashenka, her secret. The photos were in our telegram. And already this year Lukashenka personally opens a very necessary new Supreme Court building with expensive chandeliers, and a fountain that cost the state budget about $150 million. Well, that's great. There is only one explanation: he wants to win all this. It will end. He was judged in beauty and in a rich way. He also recently opened a second runway at the national airport /Minsk /. There is absolutely no one to fly. Such lanes are only in the Arab Emirates. Add to this the already mentioned 17 residences, the Palace of Independence, 2 Boeing, a new helicopter and other expensive toys. Dictator, and you will understand where the one is. The black hole into which our have been flowing for 25 years. You are the money. But Belarus already owes other countries more than $16 billion. That's more than a third of GDP. Record migration, the first places for suicides and drunkenness, and the last in terms of the standard of living of the population and salaries. It is in our interests to turn off this tap, because it is too early. Later, Lukashenko will leave anyway, and the debts will remain.